Hi, I'm Li Hao. So if you have followed with me along with my videos about creating custom stores, you must have seen how I create custom stores using application state libraries. I converted DOM events into stores, and also I've show you how you can create your own store using Spring, Twin, as well as derived. In this video, I'm gonna bring in a concept from functional programming to allow you to create more stores using pure functions, right? And this concept is what I'm going to introduce you. It's called higher order stores. So what is higher order stores? So if you're familiar with functional programming terminologies, you know that higher order functions is a function that takes in a function and then return a new function, which the new function is being enhanced by your function. And probably if you're familiar with React or other component libraries, you're familiar with this concept called higher order components, which means that your function takes in one component and return a new enhanced component. And I'm going to borrow this concept, this idea of higher order function, and I'm going to bring it to store. So right now I'm going to share with you a few higher order stores, which is a function that takes in your store and then return a new enhanced store. So you can do cool things with the store. So are you excited? Let's jump right in and take a look at this example that I've prepared for you over here. So if you take a look at this code right here, let me zoom in a bit so that you can see the text clearer. I have a mouse position, which is a store. If you have followed me on how you can create a store using DOM events, this is exactly the same code that I have written over there. Links in the description if you want to watch that video. So I use this store and I assign it to a variable. So you don't have to, right now I'm going to assign it to this variable called position. So position is actually equals to mouse position. You don't have to do it. You can use the mouse position directly if you want to as well, but just bear with me for now. So this store, the store value itself has two properties. It's an object and has two properties. It has Y and X. So when I move my mouse, the X and Y property value of this store will update according to my store mouse position. So over here, I created a div, which is red in color, 100 times 100 in size, and then make it a position absolute, and so that it has a transform that moves based on the value of the store, the mouse position store. So based on the X and the Y value. So right now, if I move my mouse, you can see that this box is following me around with my mouse. So so as I move my mouse, the value of the store is updated, and the code over here subscribes to the value of the store so that it always gets updated. So over here, you always get updated value of the X and the Y position, and you can also see it over here where I print that both value out in the box over here. So let me introduce a few higher order store that I've prepared ahead of time. So the first one is called debounce. So debounce is a function and takes in a store, and it's going to return a new store. So over here, I use derived to do that. So I use a function called derive and takes in a store, and derived method will return me a new store, right? But then this debounce itself is a higher order store. It takes in a store and returns me a new store. So what this derived method does is that it will set timeout so that it will debounce the value of the store. So the store that is takes in by this debounce function, whenever the value has changed, it does not change the return store value immediately. You only update it in maybe after 100 milliseconds if nothing else has changed. Right? So you make a lot of changes at once. It's not updated until 100 milliseconds after the last change. So to use it, can import debounce from debounce. And since this is a function and that takes in a star and returns a new star, I can do it like this. Right, so you see that this is still a star. We don't have to change anything. We just wrap your star with a function, which is a higher order star function. And this will give us a new enhanced or customized star. So with this debounce, what you can see is when I move my mouse, it does not move immediately, but the value of the X and Y is being debounced. Right? So it feels a bit weird, but it is how debounce work. But probably what we want is not a debounce, but throttle. What throttle means is that for every, so whenever you have value changes, you don't you limit the changes to happen only maybe once in maybe 100 milliseconds. So you have changes that happens very quickly in successive. That does not happen. Only the value will only be throttled to only change in every 100 millisecond. So we're going to use this throttle function. Apparently we haven't implemented it, but you can see immediately the idea of higher order star is it takes in a star and returns a star. Right? So I can easily replace this like throttle with throttle and replace this function. I still get my star. I still get my star and I don't have to change anything else. So I can, and good thing about, because of the functional programming idea, I can chain multiple star at once. For example, I can debounce and then throttle, and yeah, this still gives me, so this gives me a new star, and then debounce will give me another new star, and the position is still a star. I can still use it like a star. So, yep. So since I haven't implemented throttle, let's do that together. Okay. So here I have my function, a star. And remember the last time we used derived to derive the star. I'm gonna do the same thing over here as well. So I am gonna import derive. I find that derive is a very great way to create a new star out of an existing star. So that is what I'm gonna do it over here as well. So derive from the star, and it takes in the value and the sets method. And over here, I am going to take note of what is the time right now. So now is equals to date.now. So I also need, because of throttling, I need to, so the idea of throttle is that things happens at most, at the value, the star changes happen at least 100 milliseconds apart, right? That amount of time is something that we can't control, but it happens in a fixed interval. So to have this kind of fixed interval, we have to know like what is the last time that we have changed the value of the star. So this is the last. I need to declare a variable called last time that we just changed the value of the star. So if last time is probably undefined, it does not have a value, or now minus the last time is more than 100, which means that either case, so if there's no last time, we need to set the star right now because it hasn't been set before. And if it's set before, then we only set it again if the time right now is more than the last time. So for here, I'm gonna say set value. Value and last time, and then we need to update the last time. So last time equals to now, or else we're not doing anything. Right? Let's try and see. So yeah, it's slightly slower. It's following around, but it's slower. It updates slower. So we have like some sort of throttling happening right now. So we can compare. We can have two diffs. So I'm gonna create another diff. So here is the throttle position. Which has the color of maybe blue. Set it 120, 120. This should be negative 60, 60. Okay, and let's create a new star. Let throttle position equals to throttle mouse position. So we can remove this for now. And let's see. So with throttle, you can see that it does not update immediately. Right? And however, it feels like once we stop, if it's just recently updated, the last value is not being updated to the store as well. So probably we want that to be updated as well, so that it does not stuck at like it still honors the last few changes that's made, but then still within the interval. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna set a timeout. If it's not changing, I need to set a timeout and probably clear this if there's new changes coming in. So I'm gonna say set timeout, which is, let's say, also 100 millisecond. And if this timeout triggers, I'm gonna call set timeout with the value. Over here, I am going to get the timeout ID. And remember that when I say derive, if it's a synchronous mode, you can return a function that clears, that does the cleanup. So I'm gonna do that over here now. So I return a function that say clear timeout with a timeout ID. If it does not return a function, so if it's in this if case, it does not return a function, it's okay. Svelte will handle that. But if it's the else case, return a function. So when the next time this async this function is being called again, Svelte will clean it up first by calling this function first before executing the whole. It will clean the previous return function and then run the script again. So let's try again. So at least I think right now you can see is that even we move very fast, the last value is still being updated. Like even if it's not even if the last update happens just right after the last store changes, we're still gonna change it 100 milliseconds later, right? I think it's a bit abstract to understand debounce. Usually, if you are not familiar with the throttle, if you're not familiar with throttle, you can take a look at maybe like some diagrams of throttling, and you can see over here what throttle means is that it will ensure that events happen at a fixed interval, right? So this one will happens over here, and then if like a lot of things happening at once, only this interval is fixed, so that it will just show like the last value over here and then show this last value over here, right? So yeah, if you're still confused, you can comment down below, and I'll try to probably find some links to help you with, right? So as you can see here, I have other higher order stars that I want to share with you as well. So another one I can think of is actually called a read-only higher order star. So for example, if you have a star that you can change the value with, for example, right now I'm gonna create like an input box, bind value with a value star, and you want to create a new star, which is called read-only value, but somehow the user of this store does not know and still binds it to an input, and you want to actually warn them like, no, don't do that, right? So let's see. So for example, right now I have a writable star. So I'm gonna start writable Svelte star and declare like value equals to writable. let read only value equals to value. Yep. So for example, okay, let me hide this two box first. For example, I have value is a writable store. So when I change something, should change, and I want to pass this store around to anyone to subscribe to it. But I don't want them to actually set the value. I just want them to able to subscribe to it and just read only. Right? So if you pass this store as like a variable, and if you assign it to a variable called read only value, and you expect it to only read only, and then you are wrong because they actually can set the value. So this variable is being used by this second input, and this second input tries to set the value and actually manage to set it. So if you want to prevent that, you can wrap this store with instead of writing your own, trying to come up with a custom store, you can write a higher order stores, so that if you have a lot of similar use case, not just for this store and a lot of other stores, you can take in the store and then pass it into this higher order store, and this higher order store will make sure that whatever store you take in will become a read-only store. So it will return a new copy, a new store that is read-only and without touching the existing store. So over here, I import read-only from read-only. And I'm going to call this read-only with the value. So this will returns me a new store. So I can, it's still able to subscribe to the value store. But if I try to change over here, although you don't see it immediately, but you can see that there's already console errors that tells you that the value, you're unable to set a value of a read-only store. The binding still works, is just because the we don't really do a because an error has already thrown out. So right now you are changing the value of the input, but after that the input will try to set the value of the store, and there's an error and it does not come back again to reset the value of the input. That's why you still see the value is there, but actually an error has already thrown and error has already happened. So read-only store, and how you implement it, you don't always have to use a derived to create a higher order store or custom store. You can create your own. For example, in this case, I only need the subscribe method from the store, so I say subscribe equals to the store subscribe. But to give out a nicer error, I also implement the set method that it throws an error whenever you call it. So without it, it is still a read-only store. For example, when I set something, it is still a read-only store, except the error is slightly different. It says read-only value.set is not a function. So to give a meaningful error, I say I still implement it and say it will throw in an error, so that you know that you have done something that you shouldn't have done. So lastly, I want to show you is called a Spring higher order store. So you've seen that we're able to throttle the value of the position. So let me comment this out and let's come back to this toolbox thing. Right, you see that we are able to pass in a throttle and then throttle the position. Right, we does not have to limit ourselves with like things like debounce, throttle, or delay. We can do something like a spring. And in this example, I'm going to show you particularly, and we can write it out together because I find that it's a bit interesting to think about this. So I want to implement a spring higher order store, so such that I can call spring with the value of the to pass in a store to the spring higher order store, and returns me a new store that is hopefully the value of the store will be springy. So over here, I'm going to use the built-in spring method from the Svelte motion. So hopefully you have watched my previous video about spring and tween. I leave the links to that video in the description. So over here, I'm gonna import spring from Svelte motion. And over here, I want to implement a spring store. I want to return a new spring store. Yeah, I want to return a new spring store. So I need to create a spring store first. Spring store equals to spring. And the initial value of this spring should come from this store. But we can set it later on. So for now, I'm going to say undefined. So if it's undefined on null, it will be now undefined. And when you set a value, it will not like spring to that value. Like the first value that is not null or undefined will be set it directly. So there's no springing from undefined to like your number. So over here, I say I'm gonna define some like properties of the spring. For example, stiffness. Probably I'm going to go for 0.6, damping maybe on like 0.2, thing, so that it's more springy so that you can see the effect. And over here, if I return spring store directly, we still haven't have a way to update the spring store, right? You have ways to subscribe to it, but you have no way to update it. And I don't want to return spring store directly as well, because that in that case, spring store will have both a subscribe and a set method. And I only want people to subscribe to spring store. I don't want to set the value of spring store. And yeah, it should be a read-only thing as well. So I can say subscribe for now equals to spring store.subscribe. Over here, I need to subscribe to the store, to the original store, and then when I have a whenever something has changed, I need to use this value to set the value of the spring store. So over here, I'm gonna say spring store.set. So let's try. Whoops, it's not work. Is it working? Is it not working? Yeah, it is working. It is very springy. It is very springy. I'm guessing shouldn't need throttle for now. Let's take a look at how it will. It's still very springy. Oops. Yeah, very springy. So I'm gonna reduce this spring. Maybe like damping, increasing the damping so that it settles faster. Right. So if you take a look over here, the code, you may notice that we subscribe to the store, but we do not unsubscribe from it. Right. This will leads to us always subscribing to the store. Even if, say for example, we are no longer for example, this function return the subscribe method should return an unsubscribe, and over here we should unsubscribe. We should unsubscribe from the store as well. And if we do something like this, so if we come over here and have a function, subscribes to it. And this one also have to be unsubscribed from store. We can do something like this, right? So that we unsubscribe from both. Subscribe from store and unsubscribe from spring. Yeah. But this isn't exactly correct as well. Because if you take a look over here, this unsubscribes is just unsubscribe from like once instance of unsubscribing. So if you have multiple people subscribe, like multiple cases to subscribes to the return store, for example, you have 5 cases of subscribing to it, As long as one of it unsubscribing from this store, we are immediately unsubscribing from this the initial position store. You can unsubscribe from this Spring store, is okay, right? Because you still have 4 other people subscribing to it and receiving it. But you shouldn't unsubscribe immediately from this original store. So we can't really do this. If we want to do this, we have to maybe keep a memory of reference counts of how many functions that we have and only unsubscribe from the store if all of them is being unsubscribed. Which means we have to come again to manage the number of functions that is being subscribed to our store. And yeah, so that is something we should probably change to. But I have an idea over here. We can define a readable store. So if I say, okay, so let me type it out first. I can use readable from Svelte store. Readable. I can have undefined first and a set. So over here, this function of the readable store will be called only once when someone is subscribing to it, and you can return a function if that will be called only if all of the subscribers unsubscribe from it. So probably we can set up the subscription of the store over here instead, and unsubscribe it from here only in here. Right? We only subscribe once when there's someone subscribing from this readable store, and unsubscribes immediately. Unsubscribes when, not immediately, but only when everyone has unsubscribed from this readable store, which is great, right? And which we probably should return this readable store instead. So yeah, but then how about over here? So when we subscribe to the store, and we should also have this in here as well, right? We should also subscribe from the Spring store subscribe. So we should also subscribe to the Spring store, and since whenever the Spring store has changed, should update the value of the readable store as well. So instead of function, this is actually sets. So this sets will notify all the subscribers that the Spring store has changed, and then notify all the subscribers of the readable store. Right, so over here, I copy this over. And I think this is much better implementation than the previous one. So I'm going to remove this and I'm going to clean up over here a bit. And here we have readable and Spring, right? So if I move along, it still works pretty much the same. We haven't really tested out the unsubscribing part, but based on the logic that I've walked you through, I hope that you understand where I'm coming from and why is it so. Right? If you're not sure, comments down below. You can ask questions and I love to answer them. Okay? So finally, we have seen various kind of higher order stores like throttle, debounce, read-only, Spring. And if you being inspired by this video and you think that you also want, or you already have some sort of some higher order stores that you want to share, comments down below. I want to see them, and if they are good, I'm gonna share them to the world on my Twitter account, and probably I will want to also make a video out of it. Right? I want to learn from you as well. So comments down below. Let me know if you have created your own custom higher order store. So finally, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. As always, share this video to all your friends and subscribe to my channel so that you get notified when the next video is out. So see ya, bye bye.